Hello and welcome to Middle East Matters here on France 24. I'm Delano D'Souza. Coming up on the show this week, Donald Trump fulfills a campaign promise and shifts the U.S. embassy to Jerusalem, but the move sparked deadly protests on the border with Gaza. Iraq's election result is far from predictable as a nationalist cleric makes a comeback and gives the incumbent Haider al-Abadi a run for his money. And it may be decades since her death, but fans of Kulthum can see some of the Egyptian singer's personal artifacts on display right here in Paris. But first, the eyes of the world turn to the Middle East this week. This as the US officially shifted its embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. But the scenes just 50 miles away on the border with Gaza were far from joyous. Dozens of Palestinians were killed and thousands of others injured in clashes with Israeli forces. Amnesty International says it's yet another example of excessive force used by the Israeli military, which could amount to war crimes.
No matter how strong our Zionist enemies are and how much we have to sacrifice, the next generation of Palestinians will be stronger than this generation. With or without support from the other Arab countries, Allah will always be on our side.
What's happening in Gaza is an inevitable result of the Israeli occupation of our Palestinian land. It is a must that these youth must revolt for.
Now, Donald Trump fulfilled a campaign promise of his when he moved the U.S. embassy to Jerusalem, but the law allowing this shift to take place has been on the cards for decades. Luke Shrago explains.
The United States of America has an absolute right to place its embassy in a capital city, any capital city. Clearly, Jerusalem is the capital of Israel.
October 23, 1995, and the US Congress adopts the Jerusalem Embassy Act, 2 years after the signing of the Oslo Peace Accords. Carried by a unanimous vote, it authorizes moving the US Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, recognizing the city as Israel's capital. However, a clause in the text allows the sitting president to push back its application by 6 months.
The president may suspend the limitations set forth in Section 3B for a period of 6 months if he determines and reports to Congress in advance that such suspension is necessary to protect the national security interests of the United States.
It's a suspension Bill Clinton, George W. Bush and Barack Obama all used during their respective mandates, despite each of the three declaring otherwise during their presidential campaigns.
Jerusalem is still the capital of Israel and must remain an undivided city.
As soon as I take office, I will begin the process of moving the United States ambassador to the city of Israel.
I continue to say that Jerusalem will be the capital of Israel, and I have said that before, and I will say it again.
22 years after the vote on the Jerusalem Embassy Act passed, Donald Trump has now become the first US president to take the step, breaking with 70 years of diplomatic caution.
It is time to officially recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel.
Following the announcement of a summit with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un in the weeks ahead, moving the US embassy to Jerusalem is yet further proof of Trump's desire to demonstrate a major overhaul of long-standing US positions across the international stage.
Now, the first election in Iraq since the defeat of the Islamic State group wasn't without surprises. The incumbent leader, Haider al-Abadi, struggles to retain his job. The coalition government needs to be formed within 90 days, but the vote has already thrown populist cleric Moqtada al-Sadr in the spotlight.
After the first parliamentary elections since Iraq declared victory over the Islamic State group, many residents of the Sadr city district of Baghdad say they're finally optimistic about Iraq's future. The source of their hope, Moqtada al-Sadr, a Shia cleric who heads the Marching Towards Reform coalition, a political alliance that includes communists and secularists. For many, al-Sadr's coalition will bring change to the impoverished neighborhood, long neglected by Iraqi politicians.
As a resident of Sadr city, my demand is to see change. Look around, as young people, we want to see job opportunities to build our city, our situation and our future. But look at the situation here. There's only ruins, not reconstruction.
If the new government is formed by the Marching Towards Reforms bloc and they don't do anything better for the people, then we will protest against them too.
For others, candidates in al-Sadr's alliance are no more likely to make change in Iraq than their predecessors.
I didn't vote because I couldn't identify a candidate that would help us and solve our problems. I graduated from communications engineering 4 years ago, and I couldn't find a job because I'm not with any party or specific political entity.
Once the head of a Shia militia that led an insurgency against U.S. forces in Iraq, al-Sadr has recast himself as an anti-system, anti-corruption crusader, capable of ending the sectarianism that has long crippled Iraqi politics. A staunch nationalist, he has disavowed both Iranian and American interference in Iraq. In this year's election, al-Sadr did not stand as a candidate and cannot become prime minister. But his alliance is likely to play an important role in forming a coalition government.
To Saudi Arabia next, which is preparing for women drivers to take to the roads. It comes after a royal decree last year lifted a ban on them getting behind the wheel. One spin-off on all this is new drivers in need of new cars. Sensing a commercial opportunity, a car show was organized in the capital, Riyadh, where the soon-to-be drivers said they were simply thrilled. Take a listen.
At first glance, it's an ordinary scene. But it's this Saudi woman's first time behind the wheel. Saudi Arabia is holding an automobile exhibition for women who will be able to drive in the conservative kingdom starting on June 24th.
I am so happy that women will start driving. And I want to have a look at the cars, their models, what suits me exactly, the prices, the options. It's great to get to know the cars.
The three-day exhibition is expected to attract some 80,000 people, opening up a whole new market for the automobile industry. With an end to the driving ban, Saudi Arabia is preparing for 9 million new potential drivers. American and German car makers hope to be able to catch up with Asian manufacturers, which make up more than half of the vehicle market in Saudi Arabia. New driving schools have opened across the country, and women 18 years of age and older will be allowed to apply for a license. These young women have already started driving courses. Accustomed to relying on a driver, they're ready to take the wheel into their own hands.
It's an amazing feeling. This is the second time in my life that I've driven a car. I have tried a few times. It feels great. I swear by God, it's an amazing feeling. But the most important thing is that you have the courage and you're not afraid of anything. I'm really happy.
It was amazing. I've driven before, but it was the first time in Saudi Arabia. It was really nice.
And you're ready for the June 24?
Hopefully we can drive here. It's frightening, but inshallah.
The winds of change are sweeping the conservative kingdom, but slowly. To buy a car, a woman will still need a man's approval.
43 years after her death, Egyptian singer Kulthum continues to enchant listeners. The Philarmonic here in Paris is hosting an exhibit on Arabic music, and a selection of the singer's personal artifacts are on display.
Kulthum, the diva. Her mesmerizing voice captivated millions of fans. She became a symbol of Egypt in the 60s and one of the most celebrated singers in the Arab world. Born in Egypt in 1898, from the 1920s to the 1970s, Kulthum sang of sorrow, love, and joy.
She was a rare and exceptional person because of both her aura and her charisma, and also the power of her voice. She was political and a feminist.
With her hypnotic voice, she kept her audience entranced. On stage, her songs could last as long as an hour and a half. Kulthum's funeral in 1975 was worthy of a head of state. 4 million people came to mourn. Throughout the world, she became known as the voice of Egypt. 43 years after her death, Kulthum's music still captivates. Her dresses and jewels, worthy of the First Lady of Egypt, are museum pieces. Some are currently on display at the Paris Philharmonic as part of a new exhibition on Middle Eastern music.
That's it for this edition of Middle East Matters. If you'd like to get in touch with us, you can check out our Facebook page. It's Middle East Matters France 24. From all of us on the team, thank you very much for watching.